Thank you all for coming. My name's Brian Matthews, and I'll be the moderator. We're really just trying to help keep things rolling a little bit here this afternoon. Thank you all for coming. We have a wonderful group of panelists. Has everybody seen, if you didn't pick up a copy of the bios in the back, please do. So here's the basics. Let's try to get a couple of rules down for as we get started here. The four people that have taken their time to come here today to hear them share their stories with us of real-life entrepreneurs, their successes, failures, challenges, and help us understand a little bit about the mindset, the skills, some of the processes needed, a little bit of how we go from an idea to execution. And these are people that have lived it and still are. I would really think this is a discussion as much as anything else, so I encourage you, don't be afraid to raise your hand and ask questions. Don't have to wait till the end. So with that in mind, if we're comfortable to get going, how about if we just kind of go down and a little bit, we know what people have done, but maybe a little bit about your ideas about entrepreneurship, what it means to you, you know?
Sure.
Share.
I'm Kate Van Name. I'm the president of the Communicators. We're a consulting firm for professional and trade associations around certification and accreditation. Basically, from an entrepreneur's perspective, and it's funny, my husband and I were just talking about this on the way up, as I guess most people do when they come to a symposium. You know, I think the thing about entrepreneurship that resonates most with me is that I do very much like to win, but I hate losing more. And I think that is, from an entrepreneur perspective, I think we could all kind of speak to those points, is that, you know, the wins are really great, but we all fail in our pursuits, and that's what we learn from the most. And I think from a Washington College perspective, I think that's what we have gained from being educated at Washington College, is truly understanding that there is always a future, there is always something to fall back on, and it is the education that you get here at Washington College. So.
Hi, I'm Mike Thielke. I am the director of the Eastern Shore Entrepreneurship. I'm located in Easton. I want to thank everyone who put the symposium together. Appreciate being invited. And there always has to be one in the room, and so I guess I'm your token non-alumni in the room. As far as entrepreneurship, what we try to do at the Entrepreneurship Center is focus more on the high-growth, sustainable, innovative, tech-oriented type of entrepreneur. On the Eastern Shore, we serve all 8 counties of the Eastern Shore. Our mission is to try to advance the startup community, the entrepreneur community. So we're one of many service providers that are available on the Eastern Shore. We try to provide technical assistance. We have a multi-million-dollar revolving loan fund that helps provide seed capital. And we also do entrepreneurship training. We have a network of co-working spaces. In fact, Thursday this week, we have a ribbon cutting for the second location in Easton. The first is in Salisbury. For those that are unfamiliar with co-working, they are sort of shared office space locations, coffee house meets library, which affords an opportunity for the community of entrepreneurs, whether they be tech or non-tech in nature, to collide, to gather, work on things together, do ideation activities, and basically encourage each other. Because it's really about a sense of communities of entrepreneurs that I think really advances the overall ecosystem.
I'm Dick. I'm the old geezer of the group. Oh, wasn't that funny? I went to school here. I started in '61. They let me loose 4 years later. I graduated on a Sunday. I went to work at Naval Research Labs 16 hours after graduation. A month later, I was married. A month later, I'd never had a pot. I never had any money. I used to save up. Bluebird. It was 15 cents for a small draft, and I didn't always have it. And So I hit the dirt with just nothing. I married a gal that had like $2,000, and it just looked like, yeah. and we saved one paycheck. Both of us were working, and then within the first couple of months, we had like $2,000 more. And there's wedding present money and graduation from college money. Didn't buy furniture. I had 2 and 2 and 2. You got that? At 6. I borrowed 3 from the seller and bought a piece of ground for $9,000. Didn't, a timberland, 4 hours west of here, Cumberland, Maryland. Didn't know anything. And I found out later that the owner had sold it to me. The realtor was the real owner, and he just paid $2,000 for it and sold it to this turkey for $9,000. All right, time to scramble. So I just started studying and learning and studying and learning in any way I could. Just dumped information on me. I cut the timber on one side of the hill, got $4,500. Cut timber on the other side, got $1,500. Sold 3,500 acres for $7,500. Sold another 35 for $9,500, and sold what was left for $16,000. So the dumb one was the one that sold it to me for $9,000. He paid $2,000, he could have gotten $40,000 out of it. And I thought, this is better than anything that I ever learned in college. I was working for $7,000 a year and made made $40,000 in 2 or 3 years. So I just started putting companies together and buying and buying. The most important thing that I can tell you here today, write it down in the memory banks. Grow. Grow. If you're in business, you have to grow, or start a new business and grow. I grew by 24% a year for 40-some years. Bugs don't grow that fast. And there was 800,000 acres scattered here in South America. Tens of millions of dollars started because of the first 2 months I was out of here. So as you graduate, keep that in mind. I have a pivotal point in my mind. I was out, a buddy, he's a car salesman. He had an Oldsmobile, luxury sedan. It cost $5,500. I never seen it, but I had it. He says, "Dickie, you'd look good in this car." And I agreed with him. I had an Oldsmobile, it cost $230. It didn't look like his, but I didn't buy that. As you face opportunities, put some money in front of you and grow like a banshee. Okay? Oh, another thing. Anybody want to take the pledge with me? I will not pay taxes. General Electric 2 or 3 years ago didn't pay a dime and made tens of millions, many tens of millions. Take the pledge. The money that you save in taxes, minimizing. I'm not saying do anything crooked. There's enough loopholes out there for all of us. But that's money that you don't have to remake to reinvest. Get them, Adam.
Thanks, Dick. My name's Adam Blitzer. I graduated in 2010. I was econ and business double major. Lucky to call Dick a friend. We've been to the end of the world and back in the middle of Argentina. Dick today is my only friend that I know that carries a checkbook like a wallet. Just very, very unusual. I graduated in 10, like I said, and moved down to Argentina to pursue the entrepreneurial dream. I had no connections there and limited funds. Was able to put a few deals together, and then got hooked up with Dick, where I helped close a few land deals down in the south for Dick. And from there, I haven't really looked back. I've spent most of my time on distressed assets and properties, buying and overhauling, leaning out, making thin, and then really attacking the growth side of it once the bleeding stopped. And for me, that's kind of been my go-to strategy on the overhaul side. I'm only a few years out, but we've done over a dozen deals already, big and small, and it's exciting. I think being an entrepreneur is the path to prosperity. I think it's the one thing that you can do where you can control your own destiny, and if you fail, you've got no one else to blame but yourself. And for me, that was really motivating. And my goal today is to talk about entrepreneurship, the lonely adventure that it truly is, the highs and lows, co-founder disagreements, co-founder successes, I think there's a lot that you can learn from this panel, and as the most junior person here, I'll do most of the listening, trying to pick up some tips from these guys, but I think you guys are in for a real treat today.
All right. Anybody want to share any big headline failures of how that went and what you learned from it?
We only have an hour.
That's my only one. Only one. What do you think, Kate? Anything?
I have lots, and I agree with Adam. I think it's much more fun to know that they were all on me than I've been on failures where it's been other people's faults, and I've been on failures where it's my fault, and I have always looked at the one that are my fault as being the opportunity to challenge me more and to see where my growth has come from, and to be able to move that forward to be more successful going forward. So I say probably the biggest failure was I started up a Center of Excellence for Spend Management, and it was not being able to get the coalition of people together to agree on a mission and a vision, which ought to be one of the easiest things to do, but it is actually very hard. And to spend the kind of time and energy and money to build out an organization, and have an investment money being wasted in front of your eyes that is a failure to the utmost, because you have so many people relying upon you. And so what do you learn from that? You learn that you build your coalition very carefully, and you build it before you get investment money. And you have agreements, and you have the people that you trust and that are trustworthy on your team, and you do your homework very carefully. And if you don't do that, then you waste not only your own time and your money, but you also waste everybody else's. And that is the worst. That is the worst. That is the failure beyond all failures, because it's very hard to get your reputation as a sound business person, because that's the only thing you bring with you. That's the only thing you have is your reputation. And if you damage it in any way, it's a very long, arduous, torturous thing to get it back.
I would say that my first major failure was at 23. It was a very humbling experience. I had a business, a consulting business that I'd started. It was on Michigan Avenue in Chicago. I was living large, and the hubris of living beyond what the business can afford to accommodate at a young age is pretty tempting. So cash flow obviously became a very important lesson at that particular time. And the thing I would say about failure is it basically is preparing you for your next opportunity. So even though it was a humbling experience, the thing that, again, we think is part of being an entrepreneur is I have a very low risk threshold. And so even though it was a humbling experience, it wasn't debilitating. And so it wasn't, but shortly thereafter that I started my next opportunity. But cash flow is a really critical lesson to learn. And not, growing's one thing, but trying not to grow your own personal expectations along with it is important.
Dick, you haven't had any failures, have you?
No, wait. And that is important. I had just started doubling and redoubling and redoubling. In the early years, I was growing 35% a year for the first 12 years. And I slowed it down later. Just success after success. And then the goal was to make $1 million time I was 35. In those days, it was worth more. Maybe you want to make it $2 or $3 million. I was in a lonely motel room in western West Virginia, and they say my my calculator was an extension of my fingers. We're just constantly ciphering, constantly just squeezing, another 2 pennies, you know? And I made it. I put the assets in, and I had took the liabilities off, and I only needed another 50 grand, and and I was a year and a half ahead of time, and I was miserable. And, and to me, it was a failure. And let me say, you do 10 things in a row right, and pretty soon you're at the top of the food pyramid. Okay? There's nothing better, and you are it. And if you're the top of the food chain and you fail, the whole works crumbles. And I had that humiliating experience. If you ever get to go into any of those anonymous outfits, alcoholics or narcotics or whatever, they call it higher power. The churches call it God. But it's something higher than you that you can go to when you fail. You fail, you don't want to be the top of the food chain. It's tough because the whole thing crumbles under you. The goals on the money, you can eat a couple things. What is money? I was years getting that straight. That's neat. That's fun. Play with it. It gets bigger and you allows you to do. No, money's a bloody tool. Put it in place. Put the Volvo in the horse's mouth and take control of that rascal. Okay? Never work for money. You can't be a capitalist if you're working for money. If you're a capitalist, the money works for you. Okay? Money is a tool. Oh, sacred saw, mighty is the works of your teeth. You don't worship a tool. Oh, hallowed hammer, mighty is the beatings of your head. Get a grip on money, put it in its place. Don't put money ahead of you. It's what you use to establish part of who you are, not all of who you are. Put money in its place and get ahead of things. On the debt, I've had monstrous, and it's been what I have come to work with, and this is only for me. If you want to start with it, fine, but do your own thing. But I try to get out of debt every 7 years. It isn't the debt that's bad, it's the compounding it. You follow me? So I try to limit the duration of it. It's the compounding of it. Baron von Rothschild, the European banker that allowed everybody to go to war because he'd lend them all money. Somebody explained to him the compounding, and he just sat there. This is the eighth wonder of the world. So it's working against you when you're in hock, okay? And don't just limit it. It's fine. Sometimes you have to, but don't let it control who you are, and don't ever let money control you. You work for it. Get them, Adam.
So I have not had a failure yet, but in the businesses that I've purchased, there are a few common themes that I encourage you to think about. One is co-founders. Make sure that you guys are aligned. I think it's really easy to graduate and go to your roommate and say, let's start this thing together, and you both are initially on the same page, except your buddy has just accepted a job, entry-level position with another firm. You're working from 5 to 9, and he's working a 9 to 5. You guys are just not set up to do business together. You need to find a co-founder that's going to work with you and be on the same page and not be looking for an out that soon. So make sure you guys are aligned from day one, and make sure you guys have an ironclad agreement about who is to do what, who's responsible for what, and look for a co-founder that is synergistic with you but has little overlap. If you both are only good at one thing, you guys will constantly be fighting for that top position, and that's a terrible way to start. Number two, the easiest way to get funding after graduating is going to mom, dad, grandma. Remember, you have to look these people in the eye at Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so take that money if you want, but take it seriously, and remember that you do owe them something, and that can also be very uncomfortable. And I've seen a lot of family feuds around this. Remember, money someone worked hard for, so treat their capital with respect. And I would say don't put all of that on black. It's not going to work. So yeah, be careful with your money and who you get it from, and remember that they're going to be in your pocket as well and wanting to hear about your business. So be careful with that, and be careful with your co-founder and who you select.
Thank you. Can we flip the order? Adam, can you share a great big victory for us that you've had that we need to hear about?
Right now we're integrating a really interesting business. We found a company that was distressed. They have been doing textile manufacturing since the 50s, and they've just fallen on hard times, kind of like all of American textile. They were not reinvesting in their machinery. They were not keeping up with the times. They didn't have a website. They were still faxing orders. And what we did is we struck a great deal. I acquired 100% of the business. We relocated them to a state-of-the-art facility. We invested CapEx in new machines and equipment, launched a site, and what we've done there is become kind of the premier American factory. And this has been over the last 18 months. So we're closing on another factory here in the next few months, and we've been brokering out a lot of deals to other factories because we're at capacity. We're lucky that we're working with companies like Target and Cargill and Woolrich doing a lot of their production. So we've had some big name W's, which is exciting, and for me that was been my biggest hit in the last 18 months.
Dick, want to share one? Big victory?
Yeah, everybody's going to just think I'm nuts. I sold the 100 and some thousand acre ranch. I worked my way up. I was 70th or so largest landowner in the country. We're not talking about bucks. We're talking space. It's a 100 and some thousand acre ranch. It was 27 miles. It's about half a Kent County. Okay, but it didn't rain, so I mean you had to work for what you got out of it. And I sold it to a very large, the 100th richest man in the country. I won't mention his name. And I got 45 days to reinvest the money, or I pay $5 or $6 million tax. I had to spend $500,000 a day for 6.5 weeks. Yeah, it does sound like fun at first, doesn't it? Day 42, 43, you're $3 million behind. It ain't fun. And it changed. I bought it. I think I averaged 17% below the asking price. So, I got a good deal. Life is full of good deals. If you're into real estate or buying companies or real estate, the money is made on the buy. 70, 75, 80, depends who you talk to. Percent of the money you make on an in and out real estate deal is on the purchase. You're getting the purchase down. I look at it, all right, somebody buys a piece, a 100-acre farm, and corn goes from $820 to $350, and oh geez, he can't make payments. He's tough. It's the bottom. I mean, and you go up to this guy and you offer him a dog crap price, and he can't keep his head up in public because he can't make payments. Oh, he's thankful. He's so thankful. And you're buying on the bottom. You're guaranteed a profit, You're buying on the bottom, and he's so thankful, you're giving him dog crap. All right, the other end of it, you've got it, and you're at the top of the market. I sold one for $1 million something in Florida, and this Pakistani doctor, the father of 4 sons in college. You would think this is not your prime buying time in life with 4 sons in college. Comes up to me, and he bought it, and I just wondering why at this stage in his life he spent $1 million something, and he borrowed most all of it. And so I asked the realtor, I says, and this real estate was hopping and popping and cracking, real tight, hard to find a good piece. And he said he gets together for coffee with all the other doctors, and they all have hunting land. So I took advantage of him, but he asked me to. And so if you sell at the top, you're making them happy because they're having trouble finding property to buy. If you buy at the bottom, nobody wants it. You got the gist of it? Just go through life making people happy.
If I talk about business, successes. I think the one lesson that I've learned from them is the old adage, careful what you wish for. Because even though you pursue a particular objective and you're able to achieve it, there's always, I don't know, unintended consequences, disappointments that come as a consequence. So if I were to talk about one success, corny as this may sound, it was in use of my entrepreneurial skill sets for something that was a bit more social, and most of you are familiar with the Sultana Project. And that was a real community effort. A lot of people were responsible for that project being successful. My major contribution was as the executive director during the construction phase, the very beginning of the project, was bringing to the table my entrepreneurial skill sets in order to build a culture within that organization that would sustain as long as the vessel we were building. So that would be my greatest success.
If we stay on that one for a second, because that's a pretty neat one. Because for all of us in Chestertown now, we don't know anything other than the Sultana being here, so we just kind of take it for granted. But at the beginning of that project, Mike, there weren't many people that would have bet for success on that. To go from nothing to where we're going to build that boat here by hand in Chestertown, get the money to do it, and then be able to sustain it. That was a neat project, and that was a pretty uphill challenge.
Yes, it was, but it was very rewarding.
So most of my career has been in departmental and company turnarounds, as well as launching new products and services to the market. So the successes, I mean, turning a company around from either a slow growth or a declining growth $5 million company, and in 18 months making it into an $18 to $20 million company. Those are the types of things that gets me really jazzed and gets me very passionate about doing what I'm doing. So, when you're a consultant and you have a lot more opportunity to do that multiple times over. So, but when consulting is slow and business, and depending upon the economics of the time, you can go into and be hired into organizations to do the same thing. And I've gone into smaller divisions of Fortune 500 companies and turned those around from a 20 million run rate to 302 million in 2.5 years. And just by simple business process, organizational design, development, operational expense reductions, and just all the things that you learn in business in your business classes, if you actually put them into practice, then they do work. Being lean and streamlining, those are the types of things that I love to do. Launching products and services, IT products, speakers, new speaker sound systems, environmental products out to market. And those are the things that I spend my time thinking about and delivering out. And what I caution is that when you become an expert at being an efficiency expert and a person who is fantastic at doing that, make sure you have some ownership in the company that you're working with. So that you are not just being paid the straight fee or salary, but then you also have the upside of the work that you've done. I've lost out on an awful lot of revenue in not being part of those deals. So I really caution and make sure my husband's staring at me. He just nods. So yeah, I make sure that you actually know how to cut a deal for yourself. So that you are not making money for everybody else but yourself.
Don't give it away.
Don't give it away. Take true ownership and understand the value that you bring to the market. And then make sure you get paid for it and on the upside.
Don't be bashful about questions.
I told him he wasn't allowed to.
Other than your husband.
Right. So I think we want to hear from students. I'm a year older than Dick, so I got to be the older person in the
Thank you.
Right. So I think what I can give you is some knowledge from a lot of years of terrible stars and blooms and all that kind of stuff. And so, but I think it's really important. Adam, you're a millennial, right? Yeah. Well, the millennials, Dick, I think are incredible, the ones I know. They're smarter, they're better organized, they're just generally more glued up than my friends and I ever were. And I don't know what that is a result of, but it's true. And so you all are millennials. You grew a beard since the last time I met you, right? That has something to do with basketball season. So, but I think one thing you haven't said, which I think is really important, you've got to know your own skill set. And are you an investor or an operator? Because I don't think that the same skills reside in one person. And I ran into a highly successful number. I just give you. You want me to give you a couple stories? You remember Trammell Crow, Dick? You remember Trammell Crow, big Texas developer? He was the largest developer probably in the world in the 80s, and then he was caught in a bit of a downturn in Texas in the mid-80s. But he came back. But he was a major big deal. And the name Trammell Crow in the mid-80s all over the world. In the early 80s, because he bought it in the mid-80s. But the early 80s, he was flowing and going. And I sat next to him at a dinner one night. And I said, Mr. Crow, what is the key to the real estate business? And I'm some kid, short pants. And he thought, sure, rather odd question. So I was expecting him to say some great vision, some vision from above, and he made all this money. He thought for a minute, and he said, I think the most important thing in real estate business is precision. You got to be really precise in everything that you do. Your location, your leasing, your documentation, everything has to be really precise. He said, furthermore, I'm in trouble because I advocated authority in my company to a bunch of Harvard Business School graduates, and they gummed it all up, and they did these deals with capital restoration problems, and he basically went bust and came back. But because he got away from the precision, they assumed that rents were going to office space, Class A office space. He said, did I realize in the 80s they were going to double the amount of Class A office space in America, double the supply. All the pension funds were piling in and all that. And he said, it's going to end bad. And these geniuses from the Harvard Business School were saying rents are going to go up forever, occupancy going up forever. When people started working out their houses, and everything just was a perfect storm, and particularly in Texas. And the Lord picked up at that time, too. So, but he was a great entrepreneur as long as he controlled it himself. But when he gave up control, it didn't go so well. Another gentleman that I had the fortunate, good fortune running into was the guy that started Kentucky Fried Chicken, John Y. Brown, like Jack Masson, who was born with a dirt floor in his house in Georgia. And when he died, he was probably worth over $1 billion. And he was a bit of a gambler like you, I think. And he used to love to play cards. You play cards at lunch, or? Yeah. Well, he played all the time. And
That's what I learned here. I did the wrong thing.
he was very good, but they bought the recipe from Colonel Saunders, $2 million, 300 million, fairly shortly thereafter. And when I encountered him, he said, I got the next big hit in the hamburger business. It was 1972, I think, before most of you were born. And I said, well, Mr. Massey, why do we need more hamburgers at Burger King, McDonald's? He said, my boy, it's a very simple thing. There are more people that want to eat hamburgers than there are hamburgers. That is what the man told me. I listened to him. He was the largest franchisee of Wendy's. Just getting started at the time. So you just never know what, I mean, entrepreneurs have to be a little crazy. And yes, everybody agree with that? And you have to know your own skills. And if you don't possess them yourself, then you got to have the right people to possess those skills.
We were talking earlier. My magic number is 8.5. So if I ask 10 people, I inquire as to my sanity, 8 or 9 say I'm nuts. If that bothers you, maybe you don't want to be an entrepreneur. Now, if all 10 say you're nuts, this is a possibility they're right. And if 3 or 4 say you're nuts, you ain't getting getting your share.
Adam had a beautiful phrase in his introduction on entrepreneurship called, I heard you call it the lonely venture.
Yes.
I second that.
Could you say more about that, and I'd love to hear anybody else weigh in on whether you think Adam is saying something important there about the nature of being an entrepreneur?
Sure, I'll address it in 1 sec. About the millennial thing, I think what we do is we would rather beg for forgiveness than ask for permission. We really see no wall, and that I knew nothing about textile manufacturing, saw a great opportunity, learned on the fly, and kept persevering, and other folks are just need to learn first. I think that's a big miss. I think entrepreneurs are instinctual. I think you'll never be faster than a shark in the water. And I think entrepreneurs are that shark. About the lonely journey, I don't have a co-founder and I have no outside money, so I don't have anyone to really answer to, which I think is really exciting. But at the same time, you do have to make those decisions about hiring, firing, looking for money from traditional line of credit or bank or sell an asset. And if it's just you, you can't really have that discussion with your right-hand number 2 employee, because that young man or woman is simply a salaried position. They are there to earn that paycheck and expect that direct deposit to go through. They're not really there in the mindset that you are in owning this beast, right? An entrepreneur really is not taking a paycheck. They get to reap the reward of something greater later on. It's usually deferred compensation. So you're there and you're lonely, you're at the helm of this table trying to figure out, do I lay off all of these folks or do I keep this division on for another pay period, which may cost 10, 20, 30,000 bucks in the factory period for 2 weeks? And for me, what I do is I internalize it, I spreadsheet it, and then I rely on a guy like Dick, and we chat for hours at a time. Or I have another mentor named Larry that I chat with regularly. And these guys are just so much smarter, and they're willing to objectively talk to you about what's going on instead of subjectively. However, these guys don't know the nuts and bolts of your business, the everyday. They're looking at it from a much more macro point of view. So you don't have anyone in your life that has that micro mindset of the day-to-day, how much cash is actually in that bank account, what do receivables look like. So you can lean on mentors that give you kind of a 30,000 foot view down, but they're not there in the nitty-gritty. So it is a lonely journey as you are the one making that choice and you are impacting lives.
Yeah, I totally second that. It's just very, very lonely. Very lonely. You got to be willing to work 60 and 80 hours. You ever work a 20-hour day? I don't know, hundreds of them. I'd go get a haircut, and they'd always wake me up. I couldn't stay awake. I was so sleep deprived. The tires, shocks, batteries, they just wake you up. You just, I woke up one time, it's an earthquake. And the car was just, the flagman had flagged to stop the cars, and I passed right out. There's 20 cars behind me, and I'm asleep. I mean, you got to be willing to deprive yourself. You got to be willing to deprive yourself of stuff. And it is very lonely. It is very lonely. And after you've made so much, you don't have really, the people you grew up with, they're just not walking your walk, or they're not in your shoes. I don't know what you see looking up here at us, but what I see looking at you, I see 5 or 10 of you capable of making $50 million in the next several decades. That's what I see, if you want it. Because I don't have anything special. Did you feel specially endowed? But you got to be willing to put the long hours and take it's a lonely path. It's a lonely path. But most people my age are out there doing geriatric golf 3 or 4 days a week in Eastern Carolinas, and I'm having a ball. I'll be quiet.
It is isolated, and I think that's a large reason why in today's environment people seek out meetups, they go to co-working spaces, they go to incubators in order to network and collaborate with other entrepreneurs, whether they're in the same business or a related business. They mentor each other. It's not always about looking for someone who's been in business for a number of decades. There's strength just amongst each other. So the entrepreneurial community, I think, is a really strong one. I think they all rely on each other. I think they all have life experience. I think it goes to what was said earlier about not any one person has all the necessary skill sets to be successful oftentimes. So whether or not you hire that needed talent or experience, or whether you just find it from other members of your network, I think network's a really important part of being an entrepreneur.
I see you in the glasses down there. I can't remember your name. Tyler, there you go. When that startup Maryland bus came by, you were out there with your device. Whatever happened?
Yep. Well, I am working with Thielke now, and we're pushing forward with Overboard Innovations is the name of the company. Working on getting my second prototype out now because there are people who want the product, and I need to start filling some desires.
What is your product?
Yep. So it is a solar-powered, fully automated system to grow oysters in residential applications. So it's a set it and forget it kind of mentality. So the people who aren't physically able to, or if they have time constraints to tend to their oysters but still want to join the project, they'll be able to do so.
Who's the fellow, that startup Maryland guy? What's his name?
Mike Binko,
Yeah, exactly. With the long hair.
and beard, yep.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Times have changed.
You're currently working with someone?
He's a very successful entrepreneur.
You're just working with someone else?
I'm working with the company Thielke, who
So they're you have a contract with them to distribute?
No, they're product development.
They're product
They're a
development.
quasi-state agency
Oh,
that
are
helps
they?
with technology development.
So I'm in the
Interesting.
Rural Business
Initiative,
and
right.
the RBI Squared, and he's working with me, and I'm putting together a market. Well, I just submitted a proposal for money for a market study, and we're getting that finalized to see if I can get some money to see how many people actually want the project, and then if they'll move forward or if I will find out.
And not to belabor the point, but that's just an example. There are incredible resources throughout the state of Maryland, whether it's at the state level. There's lots of service providers here. One of the things that we work very hard at the Entrepreneurship Center to do is to make the Eastern Shore part of the statewide ecosystem. And so there's a couple of examples. Joe's been doing, and Suzanne have been doing a lot with Thielke and reaching over on the Western Shore. So there's just a lot of resource and capacity.
And from within. I'll connect you with the alum who's got all those oysters in the water as well. He would be a good person to ping.
Yeah, the loneliness piece, and it's a lonely. I from a consulting perspective, it's not. It is because you work with clients, and so it's never a lonely prospect. But I own my own business, and so I have to make all my decisions around that. But I've never found that to be a lonely thing. I've always had a fantastic network of people. I've always had mentors. I've had mentors in almost every industry, in every walk of life, and in academic and in government. And so I think that's one of the things that as an entrepreneur you have to do is create a community so that it is not a lonely prospect. And when you are working with your clients, they're looking to you for that surety and for that stability and for the for you to give them the feeling that there's a level of confidence that you bring to the table, and to have that nudging in the back of your mind that you are not going to be confident in making those decisions. You cannot go forward with that. So my caution always is make sure you actually know everything that you are signing away. Never sign it away. Taking government money, taking anybody's money, you are going to be giving something of yourself away. And just make sure you're comfortable with whatever you're going to do. That's why I like self-funding. It takes a little longer, and it takes a little bit more effort on your part, and it does. The 20-hour days are very commonplace, and you see the dark circles under your eyes all the time. But you know, the self-funding, I never give anything away if I self-fund it. It always comes back to me. So.
Kate,
Yeah.
listening to you talk, could you kind of describe what you think the difference is between a business owner versus an entrepreneur? Because I think they're very different things.
I do think they are.
I don't see business owners as entrepreneurs. I see
Yeah.
them as completely
No, I think you can be an entrepreneur and a business owner, but not all business owners are entrepreneurs. So, and I think that you need to. I think there is a level of accepted risk that goes into an entrepreneur a relationship. I think there is. I think it's the calculated risks and what those levels are. To me, that's a big criteria for entrepreneurship. I think the ability to make decisions, not counting on other people to make the decisions for you, I think that's part of an entrepreneurship. So I think there are business leaders out there who are definitely have those qualities, and are. I think entrepreneurs are more generalists than being specific. I think that they have a lust for life that is well beyond a day-to-day salaried worker.
One specializes in acting, the other specializes in reacting. And
That's
we've
very-
all been talking about acting, but we never really just hit the hammer on the head. There's a guy I partnered with, and he's very successful. We started out about the same net worth in 1990, and he just went to the bloody moon. He did it with borrowing money, but he's the best flipper I've ever seen. And he gets to flipping, and he's up to, he bought $250 million worth of real estate in one transaction. Well, that gag a maggot, wouldn't it? $250 million, not $1 million. But at any rate, he hits the big time, and he does what they all do when they hit the big time, gets his own private jet, and he just wants to show off, so he's inviting the dumb old hillbilly dick up there, and I've never been in a private jet before. And we're sitting, he and his vice president are sitting here, and I'm sitting here facing one another, and noisy, oh, that rascal's noisy, and in case you want to know, or maybe you do that sort of work, I don't know, but they go up like 40,000 feet, and you just couldn't talk. And finally, they get to cruising, and it's still noisy, but it's not quite as noisy. So we're just expressing pleasantries back and forth, facing one another. And finally, the conversation reaches the point where he's going to explain the secrets of his success. So he and his vice president lean forward, and I'd lean forward, and he says, "Good things happen to you when you own land." He looks at his vice president, and he goes, smile, and they sit back in the seat. Oh, shit. I've got millions of dollars I've put in with this guy, and he's a nut. He's a nut, a fruitcake. And it stuck in my craw, and the more I thought about it, oh, he was exactly right. How many people you know, or if you don't know them, you're going to know them, they flow chart something to death. they plan ad infinitum, and somebody else comes in and buys it or does it, and they don't jump before you got a plan, but when you got something you're sort of happy with, move. And I know so many people in my own family. I raised, he's real smart, but I got to kick him in the butt and say, do it. It's time to get to the action. Don't forget to act when you find a good deal.
Entrepreneurship's changed a lot over the last several decades, different from when I started to what it is today. It was all about planning and, you know, having all your T's crossed and I's dotted before you actually acted. Nowadays, it's about having a reasonable plan. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's about acting, and then it's about pivoting. And because you start out with an idea, I guarantee you a year into your business, it doesn't look anything close to what you originally envisioned. You have to pivot to what the market tells you they want to pay money for, or what they want you to do. So it's about pivoting. That's really where the strength, and there's the phrase you probably learned in class where, you know, it's lean startup. Again, start lean and be able to pivot to accommodate what the market and the environment's telling you to do.
Mike, you're incredibly smart for not having graduated from.
He's still on the fence with me. I'm not really sure yet.
Seeing Michael Harvey here, I wonder if, since most people here are in some form related to Washington College graduates or whatever, whether you learn something here, which is really in the war supply or not, that because I now know a lot of entrepreneurs from Washington College, very successful entrepreneurs, and so that's number one question. Is there really something special going on here? Which I think there is. And number two, if there is, then I think we've got us, and those who are responsible for the college, we have to take this entrepreneurial thinking very seriously, because we're in a cat fight. Dick and I, as an industry, Dick and I were talking about it earlier, that the small liberal arts college is really in a cat fight. And so all the entrepreneurial thinking that we can get is what we need, because it's just a difficult business model. And Mike, do you think there is, and students, is there something going on here that's...
It starts with George Washington, among many other things. You have the largest whiskey distillery in the United
But
States.
he also went, well, no, he didn't go bust. Well, he did go bust, but his wife got busted. All the founders went busted, so I don't think they're very good businessmen, including Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, and George Washington. But Washington was smart enough to marry a rich woman.
Well, I went to Knox College in Galesburg, Illinois, and Abe Lincoln is a big fixture at our campus, and he was my model growing up after graduation. I figured if he could bankrupt 4 law practices to become president, I could do anything.
On a serious note, I'm pumped to see so many young ladies out here. I think lady founders are like the new thing. I certainly am seeing that a lot. I think it's good for all of you guys for getting out there, because it's a boy meet boy world out there, and you hear about the old boys club, but there are so many smart young ladies breaking through. And I deal with a few of my largest customers are run by female founders and co-founders, and those are the smartest teams, and they kill it. So I really recommend grab that and go. Guys, you'll be fine, but the ladies are, they are serious contenders in this startup space. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing to see. And that's so different. I think 10 years ago, completely different world. 20 years ago, even more so.
50 years.
Yeah, 50 years ago. I mean, the female founder thing it's alive and well and really exciting.
So my wife died several years ago, and I live 60 miles in New Mexico. I live 60 miles from a restaurant, and I had to learn how to cook. It was awful. I'm remarried, everything's fine. Okay.
Doesn't look like a star.
No, I'm on the rebound. Let me give you something, an example from cooking. The little conical giz with all the holes in it, the metal gizmo, colander. and they got a pistol, like mortar and pistol you in there, and you're making ketchup or tomato juice even, and you go round and round and round in it. Business is going around one more time. You've bought the tomatoes, you've got it all set up, the pot's ready, all the stuff is ready, and go around. You're not getting much out of it, but you just get a little bit more out of it. You just be persistent. The time you get to that last squeeze, you got nothing in it. And that's about all I know about cooking. Right?
I think graduating from Washington College brought a certainty and a sure-footedness. And when you go out and you start your first company, or you join a firm, or you do your first venture, and you go in front of your first mezzanine level, capital investment group, and you are a medieval English lit major, which I was. I think what Washington College brings to you is that you have the ability to think on your feet, that you have an institution behind you that is seeped in success and in history, and is going to be here through your future. The number of people that I met while I was at school, and the people that I've met since I've graduated have always been with me. And my best friends were people that I was on the floor of my freshman year. I mean, they're my best friends. They will always be my best friends. And I think that when you go to an institution, you go to a college like Washington College, and then you leave those halls, and you go out into your first venture, and you just know that you're going to be successful. There's just no doubt about it. I mean, and even if you fail, you just know that there's this whole bunch of people behind you pushing you forward, and you're going to go into your next venture, and you're going to be more successful the next time you go about doing it. Every class I went to, every professor, whenever you would get a grade and you always went up to them and said, can we do something to fix this? This is not really what I had in mind. They would say, you're going to do great next time. You just keep plugging away, keep plugging away, keep plugging away. And if that's not the entrepreneurial spirit, I just don't know. You just get to keep plugging. If you don't, then it's that if you don't have that in you, you're not an entrepreneur. If you don't see that, you're just it's a continuous cycle. It's a continuous learning cycle. And I said this in my bio. I mean, you're a lifelong learner as an entrepreneur. You do not stop.
But it's not a flaw not to be an entrepreneur either.
It is such a huge flaw to not be an entrepreneur. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, it's just a different life. It's a different personality. It's a different lifestyle. There is a distinct lifestyle to being an entrepreneur. So.
But I'm glad you said that about I think Larry, I remember.
Yeah, you should tell me your HBS story.
Yeah. Well, if he's your mentor, he's 25 years younger than I am. He's my mentor too. He's and you read about the new incoming chair, who was just selected by Harvard Business School as amongst the top 100 CEOs in the world, number 38. Imagine coming from a little podunk place on the Eastern Shore to rise up to that kind of thing. So it's possible and he is an interesting combination between being an entrepreneur and a corporate person as well.
You'd be amazed at the doors that open up when you say Washington College. You'd be amazed. You'd be amazed about the connections. You'd be amazed that everybody knows somebody from someplace who knows somebody from Washington College. And I lived out in Ohio for 8 years after I graduated, and people knew Washington College. So don't think that, and I'm not taking offense to the podunkness, but I will say it's not a podunk school. It has an incredible reputation. There are incredible people who have graduated from this school. I would count myself as one, and we've got a couple other. We did not have you. Why didn't we? And then, but you know, you have to understand that there is an alumni group out there that is just very impressive, and are speaking speaking so well for you. They're setting an incredible standard for you, and they're there to help you. So make the most of it.
To jump on that a little bit, I think the opportunity you have at hand here at Washington College as a liberal arts school is to jump around and take a lot of courses that you otherwise would not have that opportunity. At the end of the day, when we hire people, we have a beer test. After something goes horribly wrong, do we want to have a beer with that person? And if the answer is no, if my team says no, they don't make the cut. And I'm dead serious.
Yep.
When you're working in a tight-knit team making tough choices, you want to be with a person that you like. If you don't like them, they don't make the cut. So while you're here, expand who you are as a person. Find Donald McCall and take one of his high-level classes. Learn a little bit about art history. It makes you a lot more interesting at a cocktail party. You're not going to be talking about stats at a cocktail party. You're going to be talking about the nice export Chinese porcelain that's in the display case at that person's house. Think about that. Really push yourself. If you're a business person, seek out Andy Helms and do it pass or fail because he's a hard professor. But take his class because he's a quirky guy, but he's going to teach you some awesome lessons. Jump down. I don't know if Marty Soydam is still here, but he was an awesome guy. Take things that are so outside of your comfort level. Take it pass or fail. Take it audit, or take it for credit if you think you can do it. But really expand who you are as a person, because when you are asking for money from a VC or a seed or an angel fund, they want to connect with you as a person. Your idea probably sucks, but they're going to invest in you as a person and see that idea to fruition. So make sure you're a good person and really be personable. I think that's so important.
Yes. Yeah. Don't come on as a Ted Turner. Don't come on as a Donald Trump. They're not success stories, believe me. Come on a little bit under. Drive a car a little less than the guy that you're having to deal with. Don't come on, I'm this, I'm that. Be a servant. The servant ends up winning. Find a need and fill it. I mean, that's simple. Find a need and fill it. And and be inquisitive. Someone went up to Albert Einstein. Oh, Mr. Einstein, you're so smart. Oh, Mr. Einstein, you're so smart. I'm not smart. I just inquisitive. I like to question things. I like to find out things. And they did. Remember when you was 15, 14, you was maybe 13, Dad said, don't go out with this guy. And you snuck out later and did it. I wonder what he'll do. I wonder what he'll do if I get drunk and get run in by the cops. You know, that same inquisitiveness, steer it into positive channels, and it'll make you lots of money.
This has been great. Any other questions? Yes.
Early on in this campaign, you talked about reputation. And for you and anyone else on the panel, when you start out and you don't really have a reputation for it in that industry that you're in, how did you go about marketing yourself and selling yourself to others when you don't have a reputation?
Myself personally, I went to work for a Fortune 5 company, and I was able to learn from the best in industry and business, the right way of doing things. And so once you have, the vast majority of people think that the Johnson & Johnsons and the Procter & Gamble's and the GE's and all of those companies, they have the way of doing things. So if you don't have a reputation, and also you're going to be in business and you are a medieval English lit major, you go and you take those, you go and you learn from them, and you get into as many leadership programs as you possibly can, and you gain a reputation from that. It's not one that you want going forward, but it is the way to step in the door. That's how I stepped in the door. It's not the only way to step in the door, but it is the way I did it. And by having then those credentials behind me from a business standpoint, as well as from an education from Washington College, Then I also got a master's degree after that. But I mean, having that behind you, you had credentials. You had a certified knowledge base that people could rely upon and could expect that you have that background. So that's how I built my career. It was by just having the best credentials behind me, and then taking my own path. And I really believe in take your own path. There is no right way of doing these things. So you've got to find what is the most comfortable for you. I think of myself as a consultative employee most of the time. Whenever I've worked for a company, I've always thought of myself as a consultant coming in with the knowledge that I bring to them and giving that to them and availing it to them, which is a little egotistical, but nevertheless, that's how I go about doing things. And I feel I'm a generalist, not a person who has a very specific niche in things. So that is how I gained that reputation, and it is something that you take very carefully. You have to take it very carefully, and if you don't, and you squander it, I've seen more people in small business squander their good name by being lax, and also saying, I put my 20 hours in for 4 years. I've done my bit. And no, I'm sorry. No, it's another 25 for me. I don't think I'll ever retire. So, I mean, I'll die working. And I'm great with that. I think that's a lot of fun. I think that's a great way of living. But, the reputation is very important. I can't say that enough to young people. You guys, it's really hard to explain to young people what reputation is and how not to squander it.
Adam, for a guy who's done a lot in only being out for 5 years, how do you answer that question?
Add value before taking. Don't ask for a mentor, ask for advice.
Mm-hmm.
Always provide something of value to that person, no matter how old they are. And then, in turn, they will give to you. When you ask for money, you get nothing. When you ask for advice, you get cash.
That's right.
Very, very straightforward. The industries are so small these days, right? They're so connected. One extra touch point, a handwritten note at the holiday. Not a printed one, a handwritten note, and whatever. A basket of Harry and David pears. Costs you $25. You know what? You get a personal phone call back. That is how you build a reputation. If your bills are due net 30 and you're just starting out, pay net 20. No one does that, and all of those suppliers are friends. They know each other. That word gets around. You can be a nobody and become very big in a business just by playing your own hand. And I think that very few people do that. Very few take the time to do those little extra human touches.
Reputation goes side by side character.
Yes. Always try to give more than you get. The basis of capitalism is first you give, then you get. When I was here, I learned the basis of communism. Did I really say that? From each according to his ability, and then maybe, hopefully, someday, to each according to his need. And there's a definite interruption there. Just give it to them. Sock it to them. Try to give them more. If you're going to work for somebody else, give them more than you're paying you for. I give my own kids this advice. Try to give them more than you're paying for. And that's the basis of capitalism. Give to get. And you can see from some of us here, there's a wanderingness. Wanderlust. We'll go from business to business. Don't feel like if you start in the pencil business, you're stuck in the pencil business. You go to the flashlight business, you ain't going to end up there. Just wander from business to business. Did they teach here the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle, the vital few and the trivial many? They don't. Do you teach that?
Yep.
It works. It works. As I go from doing one thing from a cow rancher to now I'm into business property, I am so, the early phases of something you're learning so quick. Remember when you were freshmen in the first couple of weeks, you just pouring all that crap into your head? You're fresh when you start something new. I was a preacher, and this goes from industry to industry. Dr. Duran and Deming were the godfathers of quality control. Duran taught me up in New York City in the AMA. He called it the Pareto principle from an 11th century economist. You're more productive when you're tackling a new problem. A preacher guy, some guy in charge of preachers said, preachers do 80% of their soul saving in the first 20% of their preaching time, ministry. So in the first, you got 40 years to work, you're going to be tremendously successful by what you learn in the next 8 years. Use it. Use it. If you're not, what I tell people, and it makes a lot of them mad, if you ain't doing the impossible on a fairly routine basis, maybe you ain't doing it right. Go for the, don't do the impossible, but just back off just a little bit. If you got something too big to handle, you just need more partners, okay? Just think big. Don't limit yourself in your thinking, but have a real, put goals in front of you all the time. Every year I try to set new goals. The goal this year is to grow 17% in acres. I mean, but you set goals and be your own timekeeper on it.
Yeah, life is very short, guys. It's really short. I mean, I cannot believe that it's 25 years ago that graduated. I mean, Joe, it's 25 for him, it's 24 for me. I can't believe it. I mean, I just cannot believe that it's been 25 years. I mean, it's so short. So we're working on it. Jeez.
I remember that it was a big realization for me when I realized that I was happiest when I was starting something new and that I was not a janitor or a maintenance guy relative to a business. I start things, I get them up where they need to be, and then I turn it over to somebody else. I'm not the guy that keeps just chugging along for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years with a business. I have to start it and then pass it off.
And that makes you a better person.
Yep.
Because you're bigger than you were before. You're smarter.
There are sustainers. There are people who love to sustain organizations, and those are the people that I like to hire after I leave. So I'll build something up, and then when I go to hire my replacement, I look for a person who's going to sustain and maintain and grow from there. I am not a person who likes to, like you said, I do not like the day-to-day tactical exercises that you go through. That does not interest me.
This has been great. Let's thank you. All done a great job.